Welcome to A Better Now. And this time we're going to talk about your mission possible. Today we have with us Marci Zychek, myself, Jim Check, and our guest today, George Sanders. About goal setting, and I think, George, you were saying that you watched the segment. Maybe just kind of like let the viewers know what you were saying there.
Yeah, sure. So I just happened to check in with Kelowna now and saw that you had this new video podcast going, and so started to watch it and was immediately struck by the fact that you were started off by talking about self-improvement and development and the role of organizing that in goal setting played, and the fact that you had done the book, and you and I have talked about your book many times since you conceived the idea and the structure of it. And then I was particularly struck by Marci's comments on that episode about being a new runner and how she was approaching that and where she wanted to take that, because it kind of dovetailed with some things that I experienced in becoming a tiny bit successful as a master's athlete. So
yeah, maybe just tell us a little about that. You're actually a world champion, masters featherweight boxing champion.
Yeah, there is such a thing as boxing for old guys competitively. And I didn't know that until I was back on a boxing journey. So I boxed as a kid, did reasonably well. By the time I got to university, I just kind of drifted away from the sport and wandered back into the local gym at Kelowna Boxing Club at the age of 54. And 3 years later, after renewing my training and a bout with cancer, in 2014, I won the age group world championship for 55 to 60-year-old featherweights.
And I watched that match too.
So that maybe sounds like a big deal. There's actually probably 4 of us in the whole world at that age that can weigh in at 125 pounds, but nevertheless, I was able to do that. And that was quite a journey to get there. And I would not have been able to, return to the gym and just train as a competitive athlete, let alone compete again, had I not taken advantage of lots of things that I had read and coaches that I had talked to and things that I experienced myself to develop a process of goal setting for incremental improvement that can actually help one achieve a bigger goal.
Yeah, and on goal setting, I've used most of my life, and that's why I kind of created this book too, to help other people mission possible. And this one centers around 3 things: mind, body, and spirit, because I think those are the 3 main pillars that people have. And it's really rewarding to hear young people like Marci talk about goal setting, because I think the earlier on you could get to goal setting in life, the more successful you'll become. And I know that I was probably around, I think it was like 23 when I set my first goal that built confidence, because I think I was at a point in life where I felt like if bad luck was going to happen, it was going to happen to me. I felt like everything that was bad that was going to happen, because I was washing dishes, silver and ceramics technician. I just had my car repossessed, and things were kind of like on the out and out. And girlfriend dumped me because I lost my car. Just you pile it on. And then somebody challenged me. I was smoking a pack and a half cigarettes a day. Somebody challenged me to quit smoking. And I didn't really want to quit smoking, but I thought, oh, sure. He bet me $100 that I couldn't quit. So I just said to myself at that point, if I can quit smoking, I can do anything I want. So I quit smoking. I won. The guy started smoking like, I think 3 weeks later, I caught him smoking. He never ever paid me the $100, but I'm further ahead for it anyway. I did quit smoking.
How long did it take you?
To quit smoking?
Yeah.
Well, I quit that.
Yeah, but how long of before you got over the...
Oh, the urges?
Yeah.
Oh, years. Yeah. Years. Like the urges get further apart, but they get stronger. Like, there's moments when you're... Because, like... I had quit once earlier when I was like 16, because I started in grade 6. A lot of people did back then. And I think I was 16. I had a car accident, and somebody's like, "Hey, you want to smoke, man? You're stressed out." And I'm like, "No, I don't want to smoke." And he's like, "No, take a smoke. You'll calm down." So I had a cigarette, and then I smoked again for the next 6 years, right? So stressful events for sure, and anything that you're kind of used to, drinking beer or whatever, kind of like all those kind of things. So, but obviously, as you get further down the road, that impulse goes away. But I did use it to say, oh, "Okay, I did that," and then I stopped saying, if it was bad luck or something bad gonna happen, it's gonna happen to me. Instead, I said, I'm just gonna work as hard as I can, and I'm gonna make my luck happen. And we both know what that means, right? Opportunity is always there. It just, are you ready for the opportunity?
I always say chance favors the prepared mind.
Yeah, so I think that's the big thing. If you're not ready, lots of times opportunity is knocking, but if you're not prepared for that opportunity, then it's like, the best analogy I usually use, say, if somebody came to Marci and said, "Okay, tomorrow you get to play in the Super Bowl. You're going to be the quarterback." That'd be a great opportunity, but are you ready?
No.
Are you ready to toss that ball? Right?
Yeah.
Like
I don't even know how to toss football.
You're probably going to not survive, because there's a bunch of steps that it takes to get to the Super Bowl, right? Like there's a million steps probably to get to the Super Bowl, right? No different than climbing a mountain.
Every year since that quarterback was 12 years old, he's been going through those steps.
That's right. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? Like that moment, it's like, every day is game day, right? For him, every day is game day. But that can be true for running. Like you were saying, you wanted to run, right? Like what makes you want to run?
Just for overall health and fitness. And it's fun, like to have an activity. I think having a hobby in general makes people motivated.
And I think once you, this is the cool thing about goals. If you find success in that goal, other goals become doable in your mind. Do you know what I
mean? Like more achievable.
Yeah, because you're like, oh, if I did that, I can do this. And that's what I use.
Very much so. And I think the experiences that I can share that might be unique as a old man athlete and old man combat sport participant, while that might be interesting, I can also share how I've taken those processes and put them in other parts of my life, including just improving as a person. So becoming more patient, less critical, less judgmental. It's the same process. One of the reasons I'm delighted to come on here and have this conversation with you is that a lot of people, and I have experienced this myself, are really negative on goal setting. And the first thing that you'll hear is, that's all nonsense. It doesn't work. It's a bunch of superlatives and slogans. But at the end of the day, I tried it and it never worked. And I had that experience myself. I set a bunch of goals, and in a previous career life, we listened to one of these. It wasn't Tony Robbins, but it was like a sales training, and it was one of these guys. And I did all the stuff. I wrote down the goals. I repeated them to myself every day. I looked myself in the mirror and smiled and said, "What a great!" And I did
affirmations.
I did all that, and I never achieved the goal.
Right.
And now that's 35 years ago, but nevertheless, so people have had those experiences, and they go, it doesn't work. And then for folks like us who are out there advocating it, people say, "Oh yeah, but I'm not the type of guys you guys are. I'm not like she is. Like that. That's just a unique personality, and that's not for me. I can't do what you." Well, I hope I can share that that's nonsense too. So I think I'd just like to, anybody that's listening to this, point out that it's a little bit ridiculed, it's a little bit scoffed at, and people are skeptical. And the reason is you have to do the work, right? You want to run certain distance, or maybe you want to go in a race at some point. Well, you have to build up to that. You have to do the work. You can't just set a goal, say, "Oh, I want to have this much money, or I want this job, or I want this life," and you got to put the work
Some
in.
people focus on the wrong thing too. They focus on things as opposed to like the process, right? Like
Yeah,
the process
I was
is what's
gonna-
important. And I'll say a saying that some people will get, some people might think are ridiculous. Like, God helps those that help themselves. So you have to put in the work. Like you have to do the work, right? So one of my goals and my body goals was I was 50 pounds heavier a few years ago, probably like 5 years now.
Yeah, I remember that.
And I drank a lot of Coca-Cola. And I thought at my age,
You never saw a burger, you didn't.
I didn't. I definitely indulged, but I did try some dieting. I did try, and I'd go and I wouldn't eat, actually starve myself for a few days, and then then somebody would say, let's go for lunch, and then I would, I might lose a pound in 4 days, but then I would put it all back, and then I thought, you know what, I'm pretty much stuck with this. At my age, there's no way you can lose that weight. It's just what it is, right? So I should just give up, right? And then just adopt the seafood diet and just seafood eat it, and then say, who cares, right? Because it just doesn't matter. And then I don't know. I tried this. I saw. I don't want to say I seen. I saw this thing on the internet about cutting out wheat and sugar, and I did that for a while, and I think 90 days, and I was losing like a pound a week. Like it was coming off fast, and then I started. Oh, I should work out now. So I started working out and I started doing things, but it was a long time. So here it is, like 4 or 5 years later. My target goal this year was 152 pounds and losing body fat and all that stuff. Body fat's hard to lose, and I achieved that in June this year. So, but it's a long process. It's not like it's the power of compounding too, right? So, like you're running, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like you can't go and not do 5 kilometers today. Like say you only did a kilometer and then think you're going to do 5 tomorrow.
Mm-hmm.
Like
you have to build up to it.
Yeah, you have to build up to it.
So I started with like 1, 2, 3, and then now I'm doing 5s. But I'll be completely honest, I stop. Like my goal is to do 5K without stopping. That's my first goal, and then I'll move up. But that's
and I'll talk about this in the actual specific. I don't call it goal setting. I call it tasks.
Mm-hmm.
But that's actually you're building the foundations, and that's exactly how we get where we want to go.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, you got to do the work. And the other thing that people have trouble with is the work is hard.
Mm-hmm. Distractions.
It's not impossible, but it's hard and it's challenging, and we're stepping outside of our everyday regular, we call it the comfort zone, whether we're happy with our lives or not. We all as humans have this, I won't say fear, but at least nervousness about change, about the unknown. So we're reluctant, and the reality is you have to do the work, and the work is hard. The good news is the work, whatever it is, it's not impossible, and you can bite it off in little chunks. And when you do that, as you're doing, it becomes way more achievable. And then the final thing, and Jim, you just spoke to that, you have to be patient. And one of the things that I'm happy to be here to talk about, I'm now 11 years into my journey as a master's boxer. I'm still working at it. I'm still improving. I still I still love it. I have a passion for the sport. And the thing is that you have to know that it's going to take some time. The great disservice, and this gets to people again ridiculing goals, is that this short-term thing that our world's full of right now, and most of it's
immediate gratification.
Yeah, most of it's just clickbait.
Yeah.
You can lose 20 pounds in the next 6 weeks. Well, you can lose 20 pounds, but it might take a lot longer than 6 weeks, right? Mm-hmm. Or you can get your financial affairs in order in 3 simple steps in 2 weeks. Well, it probably is going to take a little longer than that.
I will say, for my generation and getting out of college, the biggest problem is procrastination. And I think that's where people stop going with their goals, is because they're procrastinating. And the problem is that they're thinking, well, how? And then that's when you start to procrastinate because you're like, how this? And they're not thinking, well, who? Or different methods of thinking of how I'm going to reach a goal. Because when you hit the how and you're like stuck on that, you won't reach your goal. And I read this actually in a book that Nikki gave me. And I think that with college students, the problem is like they have so much schoolwork, they have a job, or they might have two jobs, and they feel like they can't do it because it's like, well, how? So I think that if you rewire your thinking and kind of tap into your subconscious brain and kind of teach yourself that you can do that.
Yeah, Marci,
like for me,
that's so
it,
cool.
For me, so it was cool. Like who? Because it's like I always wanted my own hobby and stuff, and then it was like my friends kind of got into it, and it was kind of like, okay, well now I'm doing it with my friends, and now it's fun, and then they're teaching me things, and now I'm teaching them things, and it's like now I'm doing something because I had my who. So I noticed even being a college student when it came to like schoolwork and I didn't know how to do it, it was like, how do I do this? And I was stuck, and then I'd procrastinate, and I would be scrolling on TikTok for hours, and then I'd be like, oh my God, like so in my head. But then if I reached out to someone, I was like, hey, can you kind of help me with this? And then they gave me a little help, then I'd be good. So I think it's just rewiring the question on how you're going to get your goal.
That's awesome. You know,
I think you and I talk about that. Ask better questions.
Ask better questions. Yeah.
You know, no, that's awesome. And you know, people say, just picking up on a couple things you said, people say, well, you know, I don't have time. Mm-hmm. Well, you know, you are running an expanding business. You're a dedicated husband and father. And sure, the goal setting for your business, but you also did personal development goal setting that worked. And, you know, you had to make the time to do that. And what I hope I can, you know, give any of the listeners is it's not actually that hard to make the time. And if you do the things you need to do, you can find the money. If it's a financial thing, you can find the time. If you need to do something extra, like it's all manageable. The problem is it seems so. A couple other things, my brain is firing here because so people looking at us might go, okay, yeah, well, you know, you're this kind of personality. I can see you're an intense guy, and you're a successful business owner, so that implies a certain personality type. And I'm not like that. I'm laid back. I'm okay. A lot of people have a view, including in my family, that I'm very disciplined. I'm very organized. I'm methodical. I'm process oriented. I'm all these things. The opposite is true. And you told me many times, you said, man, if I have to do this stuff because I'm the laziest blank. I'm the laziest blank.
I am so lazy.
So my reality is not this guy that steps between the ropes and says, bring it, let's go. That's not my reality. My reality is I'm lazy. Like I'm in competition with this guy for who's the laziest guy. I'm a terrible procrastinator, which is what triggered it. You know, terrible that's a big challenge. I'm sloppy, which means you're disorganized. I like to spend time sort of thinking about comfort and convenience and having kind of, you know, esoteric, just like distraction stuff. So that's my default position. A lot of people go, no, that's not you. Well, that's because I've been able to overcome all of those things because I realized I wasn't going to get anywhere in my life, regardless of professional life or athletic life, just life in general. I wasn't going to be the person that I would like to be if I didn't overcome those things. And I discovered I didn't invent anything at all. I discovered, I learned, through trial and error, I experienced some methodology and some techniques that allow me to take these things on. And I look at it as my own piecing together bits of other people's stuff. The overall kind of mindset I call the 5 P's. So we have process. So Name it and you can claim it. Well, standing in front of the mirror saying, I want $1 million isn't going to get you $1 million. You have to figure out sort of what are the steps? How am I going to do that? How does that work? Right. So, and everybody's process is a little bit different, but you have to have it, right? You have to have a process. Running a marathon in a certain time, that can be discouraging if you're still trying to make it 5K without stopping, right? But if you live in the present moment, that goal is still out there as a dream or a vision, but it's not impactful today. Being in the present moment, what can I do today, right? Yeah. What can I do today? And a thing that I experienced in my boxing training that was really helpful for me, and I use it with the other athletes in the gym now, encouraging and a little bit coaching, is I developed this mantra, just be strong in the moment. So in our high interval or high intensity interval training, you know, I'm dying. We do a 3-minute stretch, and I'm going, when's the end of the round? You know, or when I'm working on the bag and my limbs are turning to jelly and I can't hold my hands up. Oh, when's this round going to be over? Or when I'm running in the same, you know, when's this? It's just be strong in the moment. Just, I don't have to worry about the end of the round. I don't have to worry about getting through the workout. I just have to worry about right now. And you know, if you have any experience with folks in recovery, right? They don't have to be sober for the rest of their lives. They just have to be sober right now.
Yeah, and that builds mental toughness.
Absolutely, just right now.
And being disciplined as well.
Right now. And then I also found the other 3 personal bests, plateau and patience. So again, in our world, we're bombarded with all these stories and achievement, and we kind of glorify all of that. And when you're just an everyday person, or in my case, you know, you're coming back into the ring in your mid-50s and competing when you're almost 60 years old, and you're just like, you're looking at Canelo Alvarez or, you know, some of the greats out there, and you just go, oh, like, I'm not that. Well, of course you're not, and you're never gonna be. And, you know, for good or bad, you're not going to be Elon Musk, but you can be the best Jim Check business leader, right? You can be the best Marci runner. You may never set a world record, but so those personal bests, and if we can incorporate those things into our training, little wins, maybe not every day, but every week or a couple times a month, those little wins, they give us a sense of encouragement, a sense of achievement, of accomplishment, a little bit of internal pride, and all of those are another way of saying confidence. So now it's like, oh, I haven't had a cigarette for 3 months, or wow, I'm out there doing this. Like, I feel like I can do a little bit more, and that's called confidence. And boy, once a person gets even a little bit of confidence in who they are and what they can do, you can face your setbacks a lot easier. You can deal with because the other issue, and we've all been there, with goal setting, is you get all pumped up. You got it. You're doing your thing. You're making some progress, and everything's awesome. And bang, real life just goes like that, right? And then it goes like that again and again, and you're going, oh man. And so those things are going to happen. They're going to happen to absolutely everybody, and it's not how we avoid them. It's how we skirt around them, jump over them, wiggle through them, deal with them, right? And you've had some great experiences.
I want to share one experience, and it's to do with coaching, because you coach too. And I coached, my daughter had me coach a lot of teams, and I think she was about 14 at the time, and she asked me to coach a team, and it was a commitment because I was also in Kelowna, and this was a team in Vernon, and they had never won a provincial championship, and she wanted me to go to coach there, and she wanted to play there because they didn't have a level here that she wanted to play at. So that association asked me to come and coach. I said, well, I'm not. Is this something you want to be serious about? Like, like that's a big commitment for me. Are the girls committed? Do they have a goal in mind? So they said they want to win a provincial championship. And I said, that's a big, lofty goal, right? And I said, there's a price that's to be paid for that. Do you know what I mean? Like, there's a price to be paid. Like, when you want to be the world champion, there's a price, right? There's a price to be paid. Like, you know what I mean? You got to go work out. Like, you got to pay the price. So they said they're willing to pay the price. So I signed up, and what we focused on in the dressing room was two things, really, was attitude and effort. Because I said, you can't control, this is in life, you can't control what the other player's doing, what the other coach is doing, what the ref's doing, what your line mate's doing. You can't control any of those people. You can only control your own attitude and effort, right? There may be some bad calls, there may be these other issues. And I said, one of the big things I want you to stop focusing on is a score clock. Stop looking at the score clock. Look at winning your shift. Just win the battle, win the little battles, and win your shift. And that's it. That's all you need to focus on, is just win your shift, right? And we won provincial championships in overtime, double overtime. And it was probably one of the nicest, sweetest victories ever, right? Because it was, the girls were ready to pay the price. I think, I won't get too much into it, but I think we were playing a team that always kind of beat all the Okanagan teams. And they beat us in the round robin. And so I asked the girls what they thought of that, what that loss felt like. Some of them were like, yeah, it's okay. We did, it was like 5-3, we were close, we were in the game. And I said, well, that's not our goal though, right? Like, when we're going to meet them, we knew we were going to meet them in the final. I said, we're going to meet them in the final. So you have to decide whether you're willing to pay the price for the goal, right? And that kind of gave them the energy they needed to get there. And I think lots of times, if we set a goal that's too lofty, like, you're looking at the score clock all the time, you got to break it down, I think, right? Mm-hmm. 1 kilometer, 2 kilometers, 3 kilometers, 50 pounds, 100 pounds. You know what I mean? Like, you keep your weight training, you're adding increments, right? You don't go from 100 pounds to 200 pounds, right? And I think that's the big thing. It's just, how do you eat an elephant is an old saying, right? One bite at a time, all those kind of things. I think confidence is a key thing, especially I notice with female athletes, and I'm sure for male athletes as well, is confidence helps you overcome almost anything, right? Because in that confidence from getting one goal done makes you confident to do the next goal and the next goal and the next goal. And you can set higher and higher expectations of yourself, because it's really expectations of yourself that you're doing when you're setting goals, right? You're expecting more from yourself, right? That's what you said in there, right?
Personal best.
How do you, because for me, I want to be better every day than I was yesterday. I don't really compete with anybody else. I compete with myself. How do I be better? And that's one of the goals for this show. I think I jokingly said early on that this show can only get better because it can't get worse, right? So we're going to improve this show as we go. It's going to get better guests. It's going to get better things. We're going to fix the crookedness of sometimes of the camera that shows up. So we got a beautiful backdrop, right? So, but how do we get more people watching us? How do we get people to like and subscribe? How do we communicate with our audience? Like right now, Kelowna Now is fighting, not to get personal, but Kelowna Now is fighting Bill C-18. Like they've taken away our platforms on Facebook and Instagram. We're kind of the ping pong ball between the government and the tech giant. Like, we don't really have any say. Nobody asks us anything. But how do we come out of that? Like, you know what I mean? Like, you're in the ropes and you're getting pummeled. So how do you fight back, right? Train harder, do different things, right? Like, how do you overcome, when somebody punches you many, many times? Like, what do you do next, right? You can either sit down and cry and say it's somebody else's fault or whatever, or you can stand up and train harder.
We told the boxers in the gym actually just last week, and we said, I was using my own experience in sharing with this with them. In my day, this is in the early 70s when I was learning to box as a kid. Um, Before I lost for the first time, and I only lost in my kid career a couple times, uh, I was 9-0 before my first defeat. And the first three of those bouts were in the beginner tournament, something in those days called the bronze gloves. And then after you had competed, and especially if you had won bronze gloves, you were now an open fighter. So I had three bouts to win that. And then I'm competing for eventually the provincial championship. And in all of those subsequent fights, bouts, every opponent was actually better than me. They had more skill and way more experience. I was in experience bouts number 4 through 9, obviously. And some of these guys had had 20 and 30 bouts, so many years more experience, and in virtually all cases, better skills. But I realized if I was going to do well in the sport, I needed to work harder than
Work ethic.
everybody else. So I trained like a demon. I got known in the gym as like, oh, he's the hardest working guy here. And you know, I didn't let that go to my head. I just kept grinding and doing it. And what happened was I was able to take over fights in the last half of the fighting because I forced them to fight at my pace because my conditioning level allowed me to do that. And it's some of those experiences that helped me develop the techniques that I then used getting back into it as a middle-aged guy and kind of, how am I going to do this? So those breaking it down things, I say that what you want to achieve, that's your, I don't even call it a goal. I call it your vision or your dream. So in these 5 P's, you know, what's my process? Well, my process is I deconstruct. What do I need to get there? So if you're talking about fitness or weight loss, well, it comes down to analyzing your calories in, calories out, right? If you're looking at, say, financial management or planning, well, dollars in, dollars out, what's left over, and where can I make changes, especially in the dollars out? Are there areas that I can cut my expenses and maybe divert that money into some dividend stocks or something like that, right? So kind of deconstruct the things that you need to do, and then the building blocks are what I call SMART tasks. I didn't invent this. This is a well-known, specific, measurable, action-oriented, realistic, and time-constrained. So to take an example of my journey back into the sport, I showed up at the gym and I went, wow, I want to train here again. So I went to a couple of sessions and I was able to sort of keep up, and I was pleased with that. And I said, well, back up a second. Combat sports, I always say to new people coming to the gym, you actually have to get in shape just to do the training to get in shape. You don't start with the training. You actually have to have a fitness level just to do the intensity that's required. So get in shape to get in shape. So I set this. I said for the next 3 weeks, every Tuesday and Thursday, so those were the non-boxing days, I will run up Lakeshore Shoot Lake Road Hill. I'll hill run. So the first day I only made it partway up, and it's like, okay, that was tough. That was really tough, but it's like, okay, that didn't kill me. Each time after that, I didn't write that into the goal, but I made a point of going at least one telephone pole further. So very specific, very measurable. I made a little chart on the calendar, ticked off the Tuesday and the Thursday. So specific, measurable, action obviously, realistic. Yeah, can I run as far as I can before I throw up? Yeah, I can probably do that, right? So it was realistic and it was time constrained. I'm going to do it for 3 weeks. So at the end of that, I made some new personal bests. I accomplished it, and the result was, wow, like I actually did that. Like I know it wasn't that huge of a step out of my comfort zone, although it was hard. It's like, wow, I actually did that. And I continued to run, although I didn't any longer require one of my smart tasks to keep up the road work. But that made a huge difference. And within a couple of weeks, instead of struggling to keep up with the younger athletes in the gym, I was actually setting the pace. And again, that's not on because I'm anything special. It's just because I put the work in to get there. And then I found that the next thing after that, I was able to take that same formula and do it again. And before we're done, I'll share a little bit about the use of that formula in something completely different than personal achievement in terms of sports or business or finance or something like that.
Work ethic for sure is a big thing. I know a couple of things, examples that I know.
But you can learn work ethic.
Yeah, for sure. Work ethic is a big thing because like I said, I'm naturally lazy, right? So like I fight that laziness inside me. So I have habits and rituals I rely on. So my workouts are now, it started at 10 minutes because I'd be really tired. Now they're about an hour and a half, and I work out every day because for me it's a habit and ritual, right? Because if I don't, I will easily say, well, you know, not today, and then I'll fall out of that habit. Arnold Schwarzenegger said, I don't start counting till it hurts. You know, when they ask him how many reps he does, right? So that's the thing. And then we both know this young man that we billeted a long time ago that there's probably one of the hardest working rockets that I can remember. Like, and not the biggest guy, not the most gifted guy, but he's playing in the NHL right now. I think he played the other night, and he was on the number 1 line in the PK, right? Do you know what I mean? And after a bunch of setbacks in his career, though, too, right, with concussions and a whole bunch of things, and getting cut, and you know what I mean, released, and all that kind of stuff, right? You didn't quit. You just keep that work ethic, is what you know what I mean. And Marci sounds like she's well on her way to, like, I mean, if at this age, and you know what I mean, like fresh out of university. And
well, your attitude is like it's can I come on and meet her like that? Like that attitude is so in line with my own experiences of incremental. You know, a person used this example. If a plane is flying from Kelowna to Montreal, I don't know if that's a direct flight, certainly to Toronto, but go a little further to Montreal, and it's 1 degree off course, right? Mm-hmm. By the time it gets over the Kootenays or to the Alberta border, it's not noticeable. But by the time it gets to the other end of the continent, instead of Montreal, it's landing in Boston, right? So those little changes, I would recommend, and I didn't write down the title of it, but there's a TED Talk by a hedge fund guy who's not talking about finance. His name is Stephen Duneier, Duneier. And if you look up his TED Talk, it's something about how to achieve anything. And he's talking about doing exactly what you're doing, is biting things off in chunks. He tells a story of him as a perennial C student, right? And he got to his junior year in university and he said, you know what, this is like, I'm not doing this anymore. And he realized that his challenge, I don't know if it was diagnosed or not, but his challenge was he couldn't concentrate longer than 10 to 15 minutes. And there's lots of people, I'm sure, listening to this that either know someone like that or have a kid in school who's struggling with that, right? And you know, I'm one of those guys. So all he did, this little change, he broke his study habits down into 15-minute intervals. And he'd read the book for 15 minutes, and then he'd go and play a video game or shoot some hoops or whatever.
Focus points.
Yeah, whatever. And then he'd come back, and his marks went from C to A plus for the rest of his career. He did some postgraduate work, aced all that. And then he tells the example of one of the famous tennis players who just improved his win ratios by like 2% a year. And he went from 164 in the world. 3 years later, he's number one in the world. One of the Croatian guys.
I think the common theme that I'm finding throughout this is with every success story, people are reflecting. And that's probably the advice that I could give is reflecting on it. Because with me in procrastination, when I was in college, when I would reflect, I would journal, I would think about it, and I'd be like, okay, when do I start procrastinating? And it was when I wasn't asking questions or didn't know how. And so same with that guy, he was like, okay, well, why am I like this? And then he realized, okay, well, 15-minute intervals. And then it worked for him. So I think reflection is a really big part, and having a book like this is amazing because it allows you to reflect on your goals in your day, and you can ask yourself those questions, but you have to be honest with yourself if you're going to set goals.
That's yeah, wow.
Mm-hmm.
I'm impressed.
The bigger part of that is not being a victim, right? Do you know what I mean?
Don't be a victim,
because you have to assume attitude and effort that you're in control of what happens now. Shitty things are going to happen to you sometimes, but it's how you react to them and how you deal with them that are going to be. Because if you blame somebody else, then you're not taking responsibility of the future either, right? Because you're saying, well, you know, she did that to me or whatever. And you know, the cool thing about Marci, she's only been with us a very little while. She's got a can-do attitude, and that's a big part of everything too, right? It's a can-do attitude. Hey, you want to go on TikTok? Sure. You want to come on this podcast video thing? Sure.
So in amateur boxing, there's only 3 rounds. So you have to adjust on the fly. And in old guys boxing, old people's boxing, masters, we box 1 minute rounds. So there's really very little time. So if I'm in against a more experienced or better opponent, if I have some time, I can adjust on the fly. But in a 1 minute round, I can't. So I can't control the quality of my opponent, his experience, his skill sets. I can't control how the judges see it. And I'm boxing in a tournament where I'm from out of the country. So, you know, I can't control the referee. I can't control a whole bunch of things, but I can control the pace at which I can fight. And in one of those fights, in a competitive environment, which includes, you know, moving around and positioning and, you know, doing all this sort of stuff, I threw over 60 punches in every round in a 1 minute round. So that's, you know, at a rate of 1 punch a second, which is, and I know that because I counted them off the off the video. But that was a goal that I had set, to be able to really go at a hard pace, because that's the only thing I could control. And you know, you can control your procrastination. It's hard, but you've learned how to do it. I've learned how to do it. You're learning how to do it. And seriously, there's nothing remarkable about me. I'm a regular guy, and it does take some effort, but boy, is it worth doing.
When I coached the young girls too, I would say to them, like, like some of them would say like, riding home in the car, parents are always, you could have done this better, you could have done this better, you can do this better. And they say sometimes that ride home is so hard, right? And I said, here's the secret. Make it rain. And they're just like, what? I said, just go out there and give it everything. Like you're saying, 100 punches or whatever. Just make it rain. Like just dog tired, like you're sweating, cheeks are rosy, and nobody's going to say a word to you. Even if you don't score, if you don't do this, and if you lose, they say, oh my God, did you work out there today, right? Maybe the bounce didn't go for you, but you worked like crazy, right? Just make it rain, right? Like, just make it rain. And that's one thing, because I've never been, like both of us, never been the tallest guy, the strongest guy, or none of that in school, right? Never been the most popular guy, always bullied and all that stuff. So I learned how to adapt to
Not
that kind
even,
of stuff.
I wasn't even a chick magnet.
I
Like
wasn't.
nothing.
I was definitely not a chick man. I think they called me pizza face and stuff like that. So that didn't go over that well. But anyway, but all that bullying, though,
I
too,
ended up with a good gal, though.
there you did. You
No
did.
good.
All that bullying.
And you did too.
Yeah, there you go. But all that bullying actually helped me with my character, right? It helped me understand that people, I don't even know if they mean to be mean. You know what I mean? I don't even think they know what they're doing sometimes. And I think that's the sad part, right? Is that I don't even think their intentions are to be mean, right? It's just sometimes it's just easy to pick on people, right?
There's a book that I need to reread again. It's called Burn Your Goals.
Yeah.
And it's a critique of goal setting, and we talked about this at the beginning of the conversation. It's a critique of it that we become so focused on the outcome. And not that the outcomes aren't important, but let's say you set and you used the SMART tasks and you went through the process. You set a goal to lose 50 pounds in 18 months. Are you a failure if you lost 48 pounds, right? And again, to my own experience, so I'm not just blowing hot air, something I actually experienced. My first time competing for the championship, I came home with silver. I lost a split decision in the final bout. I thought I won, I looked at the video. I liked how I beat. So I didn't get the outcome, but I was happy to send the video of the fight to all my friends and relatives because I boxed as well as I could have. Well, whatever. I boxed really well. I was proud of my performance. Did I get the decision? No. But so the outcome didn't go my way.
But you made it rain.
But I made it rain. Yeah. I made it rain. And that was so when I came home from that, I had a little bit of disappointment, but I was pretty stoked that I had gone and competed and I had got the silver and all of that stuff. Just for that reason, we can get too focused on the specific outcome, and really it's the continual improvement, it's the process, it's the road that you're on. And Marci, I think with your attitude, you're going to find that you're going to be able to take those things that you're experiencing and apply them to other parts of your life and make those things work too.
Thank you.
If anybody's interested in a book, reach out. And if you can't afford a book right now, we'll give you a book because I think it's good for you. In there, it talks about like it's a mind, body, spirit, because I think that's like the three pillars that people have. Whether your spirituality comes from yoga or from religion or wherever you get your spirituality, I think your spirit has a lot to do with how you're feeling. And I think your mind is your financial and your career goals and all that stuff and how you're shaping that. And obviously your body goals. I think one of the easiest ways to get confidence is to work on your body. The most important vehicle that you have in life is the one you walk around in all the time, not the car you drive. But a lot of people are treating their body like it's a garbage can. And you know what I mean? Like, so if you put in bad fuel and if you do bad things to it, it's obviously going to react poorly as well. So starting on some of the goals, like running, going to the gym for myself, losing, will build confidence in other areas like financial goals and all that other stuff too, right? Because lots of times people don't want to do financial goals because they don't think they have knowledge in those areas, right? So that's, again, asking who, right? Like, who can help me learn this stuff? Like, how, right? How do I go about learning all this stuff? Because the best employee that you can employ, even if you're working for somebody, is your money. You put your money to work, right? And George can talk about that in another segment or something like that. But once you start figuring out the pillar of your body, which is an easier one to tackle. Lots of times people get lost in the career or the financial side of it. And then the spirituality sometimes is the confusing one as well for a lot of people, right?
But if we deconstruct, and that's part of my thing of talking about process, if we can deconstruct where we're at, we can kind of, and by that I mean, what are the various components? We can kind of work on them. So if someone's out there saying, I really want to transform my financial life, and especially people in the younger people, and maybe they're not yet at their peak income earning years. So how do I get there? How do I get this money to start investing? Like, how do I get started? And it's very daunting. But part of that process is, okay, I need to figure out, do I need an advisor? Do I need to be directed to some good books that I can read? Where's the information I can get? And you can incorporate that initial learning into a smart task. I'm going to read this book. I'm going to read 20 minutes a day in this book for the next 3 weeks or something like that. You'll be done the book.
I
right?
help.
So you can, that stuff is achievable seriously by anybody.
I helped a young lady that works for us a while back, and she was saying she struggled with saving money, like, because it seemed like, she never had enough. I said, well, I'm about to give you a raise, and you seem to be doing okay right now. Well, why not take the whole raise and put half of it in a TFSA and the other half in an RSP? And she's like, okay. Because I said, you don't need another Starbucks. You don't need another this or that. And she did that. And I think like a year and a half later, she's like, holy cow, this is a lot easier than I thought, right? And it's just that first step too, like finding out that information. Like, this is the basic thing for finance. If you pay yourself first, I know this is an old saying, if you pay yourself first, just 10% of all your earnings ever in your whole life, just think what you'll have at 35. You know what I mean? Just 10% off the top. You take 10% off your check, and your check may be small at this point, or you know what I mean, and it grows as you mature. But if you take 10% off the top and just put it away, and whether that's in your TFSA, which is one of the smartest things to do first, max those out first, and then an RSP, and then just savings accounts and investments and all that stuff. Holy cow! In 10 years, that's more money than most people have in their whole lives. Do you know what I mean? And it's not hard, right? No. You just take 10%, you write that down, 10%, and just put it in the bank, and just put it like in some type of vehicle, right? TFSA. First thing to do is open up a TFSA, because that's the tax-free savings account. That's probably one of the best investment vehicles that we have as Canadians.
It's staggering.
Yeah.
It's staggering the potential of it, and the RRSP isn't that bad either.
Yeah, the TFSA though is a really cool vehicle, and I think that was from the Stephen Harper government a long time ago, and I think you have so much room that you can put in each year, right? So, I think we've been on for a while, and we're going to have George back. You got more?
I just wanted to close. I just wanted to close with one other, again, personal experience. Sure. Using a smart task to sort of, I think, bring out the better part of my personality and get rid of the not so good part of my personality. So I noticed a bunch of years ago that I've always been my whole life impatient in traffic, right? You blank, blank, blank. It's just like, and we can all relate to that, right? Everybody can relate to that. And we can relate to dealing with troublesome people. Obnoxious, rude, overly aggressive, highly critical, whatever, So what do you do? So I said to myself, every time I have that kind of incident on the road, rather than giving voice to it, I'm going to say a prayer for that person. So the first time it happened, I said, Lord God, I lift this person's needs to you and ask that you give them your peace this day. Now, if you're not a believer or you're not a person of faith, then just utter a good wish, you know. And if you have company in the car, maybe you just whisper it to yourself. I wish that person wellness and peace today. And what happened after the course of a couple of months is I noticed in all aspects of my life, I was more patient with obstacles and hassles and like, don't get me wrong, it's a work in progress. You know, I'm not Mr. Chill and Mr. Mellow, but boy, that sure calmed me down. And what that did for me using these tasks was it took the focus off me as a I'm offended by this guy's cutting me off in traffic, and it lifted up that person, right? Wishing their good and their wellness. So I then took that exercise into off the road and into just running into people in general that were, you know, and boy, when you do that and you say that guy so this and that guy so that, you realize that, yeah, I'm that guy too.
Mm-hmm.
I'm the arrogant SOB, or I'm the rude guy, or, you know, I'm the holier than thou, or whatever. So it's an excellent exercise in kind of humility and growing to be like just a better quality person. But without that kind of methodology or framework, I don't think I could have ever gotten out of kind of being the nastier part of myself that I'm capable of being.
Yeah. Awesome.
Well, I think we're going to close it off there. And again, like I said, our show will only get better. We lost the camera as we were moving along here. The battery died because this is our second video show in the last couple hours. But again, if you would like and subscribe, send us comments and feedback, that'd be appreciated. And thank Jason back there struggling through that when the battery died. I think it flashed on the screen for a second, but again, we'll be better tomorrow than we were today. Better now.
There you go.
Have a great day, everyone.